The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got Tony coming up at 11 o'clock. Sandra Day O'Connor passed away on Friday at the age of 93, the first woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, appointed by President Ronald Reagan in 1981, sworn in September 25th, 1981. She said, I am honored to be the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court. I hope not to be the last. Of course, she was not. She came along at a time where things were a lot different in this world. She graduated near the top of her class of Stanford Law School. And when she got out of law school, the positions she were offered were secretarial. I mean, come on. And she overcame all that to reach the level that she did. And she is, in the sports way, in this town anyway, and maybe throughout the world, intertwined with John Riggins. And I didn't see great obit in the Post on Saturday, a lengthy obit, front page. I didn't see any mention there of John Riggins, but they are in many ways, and he had great respect for her despite his performance in 1985 in front of her. She grew up in a kind of the same way he did in Centralia, Kansas. And in the obit, it mentions a story that she told that while she was a teenager working on her parents' cattle ranch, the workers were rounding up cattle in an area very far away from the ranch headquarters. She writes, we had to get lunch to them, and the roundup cook, for some reason, wasn't going to be there. So I got up extremely early. My mother and I fixed the lunch, and I got into a pickup truck alone to drive to the place where they were. I was going along when all of a sudden I got a flat tire. This is a teenage girl. She said, so I stopped the truck, got out. I knew how to jack a car up. I'd seen it done. So I found the jack and did that. I worked so hard. Then I got the flat tire off and the spare tire on, put the lug bolts in tight, got everything working again, but it took me a long time. By the time I got to the bend, it was several hours past lunch, and I could see my father in the distance. I recognized him by his hat, and I was sure he was mad at me because I wasn't on time. When I finally got to him, he said, you're late. I said, yes, I'm really sorry, but I had a flat tire and I had to change it. I'm lucky to be here at all. And he said, well, you should have started a lot earlier. That was the attitude on the ranch. You had to anticipate difficulties, and when you ran into them, you had to overcome them and do your job, and I had failed. It's not a bad lesson, a lesson that she learned very well. But what happened in 1985 was there was a dinner with the vice president, George H. Bush at the time, H.W. Bush at the time. Riggins, as a local celebrity, was invited and seated at the same table as Sandra Day O'Connor. And as he recalled in his football life on the NFL Network, things kind of unraveled from there.
Well, I'd been with a good friend of mine most of that afternoon, having a few beers. Got home, put on my tuxedo, didn't bother to eat, went down to the hotel where the party was, walk in, and I don't know why, because I really hardly ever drink it, but I had a double scotch. He says, "Gubernator," and then I had another one. I understand that we're going to be seated at the same table tonight. There were 2 bottles of red wine, and John, in a very expressive mode, managed to mow both of them down. They bring dinner, but by now, it's like I'm already past the point of no return. And I said, I'm not hungry. So I continue to drink my dinner. So they put 2 more bottles of red wine also within John's reach, and somehow managed to knock them over. So at this point, the table is now covered with red wine. We'd been told early on that Justice O'Connor was going to have to leave early. But by now, you get into that frame of mind where everybody's at the party and you don't leave. It's all, and so Justice O'Connor's getting ready to leave. And of course, that's when the now famous words, "Loosen up, Sandy, baby." And basically, it was me saying, "Don't go, come on, we're going to have a lot of fun." And then it was, boom, timber. I got to tell people it looked like an 18-wheeler jackknifed on the interstate. And he just went back without a sound. And he stayed there for the entire speech. I guess instead of making a commotion, they just left me there till the party was over and the lights came up and they helped me to my feet. And I rode off into the sunset. it was a great evening, as far as I was concerned, one of the most memorable that I can remember in Washington, because of the way that it played out, and the fact that everybody enjoyed it.
What did I think of it? I think there's two schools of thought on that. Some people think it's fabulous. Other people are like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. I thought it was fabulous. I thought it was the guy that I would want to meet and hang out with.
And later marry. That was Lisa Marie Riggins at the end of that. You also heard from the former governor of Virginia, Charles Robb, who was seated at that table. Yeah, and Riggins had great respect for her, and he was later in a play, and she showed up after the play with a bouquet of roses. And they were at another event also some years later, and she yelled out, "Loosen up, Johnny baby." I mean, what a classy woman. And that goes down as one of the all-time Riggo moments, which occurred in 1985. Rest in peace, Sandra Day O'Connor.